it's not just you boys who get to surprise our listeners by showing up in our sponsor spot. I too can gate crash an episode. And you know what? It's pretty worth it in order to be the one to tell people about NordVPN. NordVPN is a reliable online protection that keeps your private information private by encrypting your internet connection and hiding your IP address and location. And look, this is also my chance for a quick rebuttal to Campy, who apologised to our Tasmanian listeners for suggesting that the beautiful island is outside of Australia, but not to his Tasmanian co-host. Anyway, it's okay to be wrong, Campy, and you are welcome to a geography lesson anytime you like. But it doesn't really matter because regardless of where you are in the world, NordVPN can help you take your favourite shows with you. Head to nordvpn.com/Lakeside Drive or click the link in the show notes for an exclusive Lakeside Drive deal. And don't forget the 30-day money-back guarantee. Okay, you can have the boys back now.
G'day, I'm James. Welcome to the Australian Opinion on Formula One here at the Lakeside Drive F1 podcast. In this episode, we review the Canadian Grand Prix. And I'm joined by my disillusioned friends and yours, Tommy T. G'day.
G'day, mate.
Campy.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Yep.
Listeners?
Yep. Hello, listener. Yeah, look, here we are. It's on the one hand, it's great that we do this podcast. It's very exciting. And listen, we're so glad to have you on this journey with us. But on the other hand, Tommy T, I just cannot be fucking bothered anymore.
No, just the magic is gone. I don't know what it is. I'm struggling at the moment.
And we know you are too, listener, because I can see the numbers. They've dipped. We haven't become that bad that we've lost significant numbers of the audience. And Campy hasn't said anything too bad recently for us to depart from something. But even in the fantasy team name competition, we used to have, I would probably like 100 names to wade through. Now there's about 10.
Yeah.
And shout out to you if you're continuing to do that.
Love that.
Appreciate
Love
fantastic.
that.
We love you a lot for it. But I think this is probably more of a chat. I've got some notes for the Canadian Grand Prix. We will get there. But this is more of a chat, I think, now about the state of Formula One, where we're at. And maybe how each of us are feeling, because I know, listener, you love this show and you think that we could do well on the Fox Sports broadcast if ever they did.
No, we wouldn't.
And maybe we would if they actually lifted their game and did something from Australian
just
point
anything.
Of view, rather than us having to listen to the whinger that is Ted about Lando Norris.
Did anyone listen to Danny Rick last night
No.
with what's his name?
No. I cannot deal with it's like Mike Tyson and two dolls in The Simpsons telling each other to kiss. That's exactly what that is. Will Arnett and Daniel Ricciardo talking about from not even in the same fucking room.
Oh, really?
What is the point? Anyway,
Really?
I just can't understand.
I'll have a listen. I'll probably watch it back.
You go back
with
and
those
listen.
two.
You report back to us.
LBS has listened and in our Discord comment of the week
Star.
is his for some fantastic reasons. But more generally, the sport, right? This is the 5th year we've been doing it. I feel I loved Formula One a while ago. Fell back in love with Formula One.
Yep.
Specifically at the time that Nico Rosberg was no longer in the
Coincidence?
Nope. And I think we're starting to feel a little... Well, I'm certainly starting to feel a little bit like that. I think, interestingly enough for me, because at the end of the day, we're all fans, right? The gap that Daniel Ricciardo has left on the grid for me personally, I don't even know where to look at the start of a Grand Prix anymore.
Yep.
But I'm normally, more recent years are looking further down the back of the shot than I am towards the front. But I feel like there's the connection between Formula One and me was very strong with Daniel.
Yeah. We've lost our avatar into the sport, our player that we're following. And now we're just kind of like, I don't know, just watching a bunch of cars. We don't have our hero in the race that we can kind of connect with. It is tough. I think we all want Oscar to do well, but it doesn't look like he's getting prioritized to that team as much as we would like. There's glimmers, there's really good things that he's doing, but yeah, it's not the same. Daniel was such a captivating character that we all could get behind, and
He'll be back next year anyway. Don't worry about
in a
it.
rematch at this point.
he'll be back with a cape on to save F1. I hope so.
Please
I
come
like it.
back.
Can you please do that? Can he please come back in and do some content with a cape? I'm here back to save F1.
It's funny. I caught up with some friends. We go camping once a year. That's the only time I see them every year. We just rock up on the same day, same place every year, and they rock up too. So, but we were chatting about Formula One and where they're at with it because they were avid listeners and really enjoyed the show and the banter. And they were just like, yeah, man, we gave up last year halfway through. I think after Abu Dhabi 2021, I think it lost a lot of fans. Last year was a long season and you know, with Red Bull domination that will come. But I've always said this year has this sport has a 5-year cycle. And
you have always said that. It's true.
And it's true.
I think for the sport, after Drive to Survive and the people that are watching it, they're in that lull at the moment where everything's becoming a bit boring, a bit of the same. They're not changing and adapting, and there's rumours of corruption and one team winning and try to peg them back and all the politics which goes on the sport, which is a part of our sport. And I just think we're seeing that. This season for me has felt really disjointed.
Yep.
It's like we started, then we stopped, then China, we didn't go to China, so there's a break in the calendar for that.
Yep.
Melbourne, and then there was nothing for a couple of weeks after that. Yep. And then the Baku, then the Italian Grand Prix got stopped. Yep. It just felt really disjointed for me. And I don't think we've got that start. I think it'd be great when we get to Europe and we go, you know, we do that.
Oh, we were in Europe and then we left again.
Yeah, well.
Thanks, Bernie.
Well,
thanks, Bernie. It's still his fault.
It's true. It's the only reason why Canada is in the middle of the season.
But hey, I think we're burying
Canada's
lead.
Canada's traditionally on the Queen's birthday weekend in Melbourne, which was a week later than it normally is.
How dare they not use our holiday to celebrate?
Oh, no.
Anyway, the lead is...
I still love this.
Can you stop while I talk about the lead that we're burying, which is it's 50 years of safety cars, and that's really exciting. Jesus. Is there anything more dull to celebrate than 50 years of a fucking safety car?
50 years of the Halo when that comes up.
That's my calendar.
In year 54 of our podcast.
At least now, yeah. I'm not sure we're going to go that long, if I'm honest. It's interesting how far the safety car has come, at least. You look back to like early safety cars and there was like some kind of British made, the doors on one side are longer than the other, kind of Morris driving around the place.
It's a great 8-minute segment after qualifying. You know what it doesn't need to be mentioned? 12 times during a race and an entire weekend.
Yeah, it's it feels, a friend of mine and I were talking, and he used to provide security for Michael Schumacher, which is a cool gig. And I think a
lot of people wanted to punch Michael Schumacher too, so fair enough.
One of the things he told me, just as a very quick sidebar, is they used to throw a dummy car with like tinted windows and everything else as the thing. And he and Michael would ride in on a scooter in plain overalls and helmets. Or put a Marshall bib on or whatever, and they would just sail past all of the crowds.
Incredible.
Which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
John, if you're listening, really great stories from a long time ago told me that. But he and I were talking over the weekend, and he said to me that to him it feels very hollow. If he says, Campy, it feels a lot like the 1998 season, which I don't remember, but it's just a bit of a nothing season. Hakkinen dominated over Schumacher.
Listener,
very
I'm looking at
clear
Campy, his brain, I can hear it tick. I can see the
I've
cogs
I've not seen the cogs turn for a long time.
The eyes are spinning back.
I was all of 10 years old. I wasn't watching Formula
No, neither
One
was I.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll take his word for it. But it just feels to me, and I know a lot of you are feeling the same. That's not to say that we don't love doing this still. And obviously, this is the first time also the three of us have been together in many, many, many weeks.
Maybe a month or so.
And it will be many, many weeks again until we are, because I fly to the UK on Saturday.
Oh, no.
But it feels odd. I'm curious as to know your thoughts. Hop on to our Discord and in the general chat section, just let me know what you think of where this season's at. Are you enjoying it? Are you disliking it? Have you fallen out of love because DR's left? That's not to say there's not good racing. There is. And today we saw some pretty bloody great racing, a great overtake by Oscar Piastri.
Yep.
All of that is to come.
Record crowd again.
Yeah. So that's probably the problem, is that I think our expectations now are so high through the hype of Drive to Survive and the end of Abu Dhabi 2021 in the closest championship battle that we've had. And that's saying something, considering Felipe Massa's still got some kind of legal option to challenge Lewis Hamilton's championship.
Come on.
Anyway.
Felipe, you're better than that, mate.
let's continue, lads. Let's talk just more generally. The DR and Will Arnett thing, not even in the same room. I feel like it's a good try, but when everyone's saying it's Will Arnett from the Fast and Loose podcast, I'm pretty sure they haven't released any episodes this year. So that says a lot about how well that went. I think probably my favourite moment was DR flipping off George Russell.
Excellent.
On the pit wall, and then George being
Dobbing.
his usual George himself in the press
A snitch.
area.
Snitch.
Is George the male Karen or what?
Could be.
Could be.
Personality.
It is good to be back in
Door
Canada,
that door.
can I just say. It is a great racetrack.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we've seen some phenomenal results and some phenomenal victories, including Daniel's first win.
Yep.
What a moment.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Including...
Oh, it was too, yeah.
How dare you
Thank you
question?
for questioning the host.
Wow. Undermining.
I was thinking of Weber.
There's
Yeah.
power.
I always get that one wrong.
Yeah, just another non-Australian, non-champion Australian. But I feel like it was very Canadian in wet qualifying.
Yeah.
Happened last year. Dry race was a bit exciting. At least Fernando Alonso had the ability to put it into a good position for the race, unlike last year when he was in an Alpine. But more generally, record crowd, as you said, Campy, the crowd looked awesome all of the time. Literally none of them supporting Lance Stroll, even though he's the hometown kid.
hero, apparently.
But it does sort of answer this question of, is Formula One fading to me, when there was great on-track action in terms of the DRS train, some fantastic mid-pack.
Yep.
Still was like, just
Just
didn't feel like
lacking
it'd get up
something.
and win.
Yeah, I think it is one of the best places that we do go to F1. I really enjoy the track. I think it's a great racetrack. It seems like a great atmosphere. It's one of those ones that is on my list to go to one day. But again, I feel the same thing. Like, it was missing something. There wasn't that kind of like pull to like be invested into this weekend. It was just kind of like, oh, it's happening. Great. I'll tune in when I tune in. I wasn't excited by it.
Well, we know who P1 is. 100 race wins now for Red Bull Racing TJC, which is incredible.
Yep.
I think I heard the stat of 26% of all races that they've entered, they've won.
Crazy.
That's big.
What's the percentage on podiums?
It would be significant, I imagine. I really do.
Yeah.
This is a very junior team in comparison to the
Ferraris.
other teams, that McLaren,
Well,
Ferrari.
how many
Williams.
Ferraris won?
Recently. When was the last time Ferrari won a Grand Prix?
Oh, it'd
I
be Charles Leclerc last year at
Early in the season,
it was
maybe?
Canada, wasn't it? Charles Leclerc won Canada.
right.
That'd be it.
Yeah.
I'm going
But
to trust you on that one.
anyway,
But yeah,
He's pretty unhappy with Ferrari itself. It was, in terms of qualifying, absolute chaos with grid penalties left, right, and centre. Nico Hulkenberg had a great qualifying until he didn't.
can we just touch on that?
let's go,
please?
Campy.
Oh my God. To come out, the reason he was 1.5 seconds over his delta is because the red flag came out just before he finished his fast quality lap. And in the micro sectors that they have, after he finished his lap into turn one, I think the first micro sector is, he's supposed to have hit a speed from there to there. But he was clearly slowing down.
Yeah.
And when it goes off, you need 1 or 2 seconds to react to it. The reality, even the steward said, didn't do anything wrong, did everything right.
It's like a letter of the law thing.
Letter of the law. So we won't give him the actual penalty. We'll give him another. Like, what a load of shit.
Just
And then in the race, they decided to be so lenient. It's like
Oh.
they knew they stuffed it royally after qualifying. And then, it's just, it beggars belief, the stupidity. Because Hulk is in a car that should not be on the front row of the grid at any stage of the World Championship. The fact rain is always the biggest, throw everything off the table and restart and build again. I couldn't think of the word.
Get the waiters to come in, clear the table,
yeah.
reset the table for more meat to be
Yeah,
placed.
Yes.
More meat, please.
It's the great equaliser, right?
It is the great equaliser.
So then he starts second, then gets a grid place penalty and drops back. Well, he was always going to drop back. But if he had got the start on Verstappen, because he starts well generally, that would have been awesome. Haas would have been leading the race for at least 2, maybe 3 laps before DRS came in.
Yeah.
What a story. Would have been up and about. And I would have been excited to get up at 5 to 4 this morning to watch a stupid Grand Prix.
We're really feeling it today. This
Yeah.
is a real positive. I can see the reviews already. These guys need to get a grip. Okay. Yeah, look, I think it also doesn't help that we've still got this bloody Sky broadcast. Again, if you are a Brit watching in Britain, fantastic, beautiful. Press your red button as many times as you want. In fact, I wonder how many times
Natalie
you press
hosted
your
this
red
weekend,
button
though.
if
She was
it
great.
was
Terrible.
told.
She was great.
I tell you what, just that whole team that's not in the commentary, with the whole team. Keep Martin, keep Jensen, everyone else can disappear.
Agree.
And Natalie.
Which we've no.
She's so pretty.
It's it just I cannot understand why ESPN as the American broadcaster, okay, it's Canada, but it's still on
North
the
America.
same continent. Don't go, you know what? For the 4 races that we've got on this, even down into Mexico, 5, go down to Brazil, 6. Send your own team to do your own commentary.
Really, yeah.
Danica can lead it, that's fine.
Yep.
But to do, let's just have Will and DR, which is fine, but not remotely.
It's so odd.
Like, do something, do it properly. Don't do it half-assed. The last thing to say about the Sky thing is, I'm not sure if any of you watched the post-race chat.
A little bit.
But the crowd, like the people in the pit lane, the crowd were like 35 centimeters from the back of the Sky crew and
Just getting closer.
Just getting closer to a point where one of the official photographers for Ferrari was trying to take a photo of Charles, who was signing some fan stuff, and had no choice but to stand in between the camera and Jensen to take a photo, which one of the Sky producers kind of pulled him out of the way, and he apologized, and okay, fair enough. But then had to like squeeze behind people to walk behind Jensen and Danica. It was, okay, if you're in the pit lane and you're a civilian, don't do this. 2 things. Don't wave at the camera. And don't look like a squid. Just disappear from it. And no one cares that you're on camera and it's fantastic you're in the pit lane.
Could be hard for Canadians.
But I would have thought that they would have been very kind and generous with their space.
How many do you think are actually Canadian?
None of them.
I feel like
Probably
a
all
lot
Americans.
of North Americans.
None of them. It was very odd. I
None
didn't
from
like
Texas,
it.
so you wouldn't get that garbage down there.
I felt very uncomfortable watching it for them.
Anyway.
Okay, let's do our team-by-team analysis now. Let's start with Haas, which is disappointing. We spoke about Hulkenberg, finished in 15th, Magnussen in 17th. Magnussen had a bit of a little coming together, Campy, with Nick De Vries.
Yeah, Nick De Vries' fault.
Yep.
I agree.
Learn how to brake, mate.
Learn how to brake, mate.
Learn how to win a World Drivers' Oh, no, you've already
I
done that.
understand he's frustrated. I mean, look, he didn't have the pace clearly over a race distance, and that Haas was holding people up left, right, and centre, whether it was Magnussen or Hulkenberg. But De Vries, you're in a better car than what.
Yeah, you can see what Albon's doing.
Yeah, you're in a better car. You should be able to make that move, and not in the position you made it.
No.
Into turn, 3 or 4 or whatever it is, that first chicane after the turn 2 and then whatever happens after that. Pointless move to make it down there. I see why he did it. He had the run.
It's frustration.
But he braked so late and locked up. It was one of those ones, as soon as you touched the brakes, it was all over because he braked in the wrong position. He should have just shown some. There's 2 main passing spots on this track. Use the DRS to your advantage.
Yep.
If it's not into the chicane before the finish line, do it in a turn 1.
Yep.
And the reality is he stuffed it. And he
Well, they
stuffed
also
2
had
races.
an incident early on in the first couple of laps, like having to avoid and go onto the grass because, again, like double slipstream. The
Well,
Yeah, he
brakes
lost
just
a couple of places because
That was-
Perez entered his braking zone out of kind of nowhere.
Yeah,
And
that was
K-Mag
scary.
had nowhere to go but the wall.
K-Mag was deep on the brakes though.
He was, he was deep already, and then just
Compared
like
to Perez
yeah,
Oh,
and-
yeah, sure.
and Leclerc, he was deep.
But he
Yeah.
had to send that. It's the only way that Haas gets anything done is by getting some pace early on and then holding everyone else
the
up
gap
for
was
rest of
there,
the
and then
race.
it wasn't there, and there was a wall.
Yeah,
And like
did very well.
very well to avoid that because that was a big incident for everyone else, not just himself. Like,
Yeah, and also not the only car to
impressive.
go through that little chicane section.
Yeah,
I think Albon at one point, like the angle of attack very similar to Carlos Sainz when he was driving for McLaren in Russia. When was that? 2019?
coming across.
And he came across and hit his rear left wheel and
Yep.
it spun in front of Lando. And anyway, Albon judged that much better than Carlos did. But Haas is this disappointing team every weekend because they show glimpses in qualifying. They get it together, but the car just isn't good enough on race pace, Campy.
Nope. I don't know what it is. It's a combination of Hulk's fine behind the wheel, Magnussen's fine behind the wheel. They can get the job done if they're in competitive machinery. Guarantee it's got to do with the Ferrari engine's not the best, and then their chassis and how the chassis and the engine probably integrate together. That's where all their major problems are. So I don't know what the sport looks like for a team like us. I don't know what these independent teams moving forward. I don't know what the buy-in for F1 is for them anymore. I don't understand the business of it. I don't understand how the sponsorship works. To me, I look at it, it's not a sport that you make money on. It's just a sport that you lose money on. At least the manufacturers can test stuff and put it into a car, and it's good marketing for them. Yeah. I don't know how these independent team works. So.
But also, are they going to be viable going forward when there's 6-7 constructors?
Totally.
And you're the last couple hanging on as a customer team. I think
Yeah,
that's going to get
absolutely right.
increasingly harder to be competitive.
But then why would another manufacturer come in on top of the 7 and be at the back of the grid? That's not a good look for your sales or the perception of your car and your team moving forward. So maybe there has to be room for independent teams. Maybe F1, maybe go communist style and give more money to the bottom teams to help them get up.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No,
It's now owned by
style.
America.
Your favourite style too.
That's
What's
the worst
that book
style.
that you really enjoy reading?
I don't
Is it exciting to think about maybe it going to the way of like MotoGP, where there's lots of different constructors with lots of different philosophies out there, rather than everyone basically building the same car, it seems like in F1?
Yeah, you need it. I think maybe if you opened up the rules a bit more, so there was like, there was some
V10s back?
Well, not just that. If you weren't so specific around sizing of cars and how wide they have to be and they have to fit within this amount of space, I think if you let teams play around a
Be a
bit,
bit more creative.
they can get a bit more creative in the sense that, their car's not going to perform on every track. But for a team like us, they can design a car for low downforce, high downforce, really small street circuits like Monaco and then the Red Bull Ring and stuff like that. And maybe that's the way you go about.
Bring back 2 different tyre manufacturers, like those kind of things.
So they've got 5 races in a year that they can go, right, let's get it right this weekend and build towards that, because then it makes it exciting. Whereas, teams like Mercedes and Red Bull, they want to prove themselves over a whole season. Maybe I just don't know how that works practically. So,
yeah, it's very interesting, as you say, these independent teams, because historically it's not worked for them.
Yeah.
They need to either be an AlphaTauri that is owned by Red Bull Racing and is very clearly the junior team to bring talent drivers through to see if they're any good.
Yeah.
But otherwise, as you say, there's 7 manufacturers next year. McLaren is not one of them. Haas isn't one of them. Williams isn't one of them. So the rest of the grid is tied up with an OEM. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's very, very interesting, I think. Let's talk about McLaren. Oscar Piastri in 11th, Lando Norris in 13th for bad sportsmanship. But apparently he's the nicest person on the grid, quote unquote, Ted Kravitz.
I wonder where his
someone just mug him again, steal all his confidence.
Ted. I just don't think that's true. Firstly,
hearing that over the radio or over the commentary was ridiculous. I don't think I've heard that blatant barracking in F1 in a long time.
To the point where Croft even called him out on it. Which, okay. Ted's lost the plot.
Well, he got it. You know what he got it for, right? He got it for
backing up the pack.
Backing up the pack.
Which I don't know about you, but that seems unsportsmanlike to me.
Backing up the pack so him and Piastri could double stack.
Yeah.
Right. It's unsportsman or it's crafty. Either way, it's a penalty. Relax with the language they use. That's what they've called the penalty.
Yeah, that's just a cover-all for things that don't quite fit into
racing,
a specific rule, but are still deemed not.
I don't mind what he did. I don't care. If he's in front and it's under yellow safety car conditions, he can back him up as far as he wants.
Literally everyone has done that at some point.
For sure.
But I think maybe it's don't make it so obvious is probably the vibe. But Oscar Piastri, what an absolute drive from him this weekend. Yep. He had a couple of issues, had to go off track, a little bit of exploring. But more generally, it looks like he's a lot more settled in this car.
Yep.
Totally.
He's able to put it against Lando. He did a couple of overtakes. He was staying with him very close. Managed to defend from him when he was behind. So as a mark so far in his season of where he's at, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal job. I mean, he's getting really close in qualifying. His qualifying in the last 3 races has been really consistent.
Yep.
Hasn't quite got it. I mean, he binned it in qualifying, but that happens in the wet. It happens to the
It's
best
also
of
his only mistake that I can think of this year.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
And we're, round 9, which is round 8.
And I really like Martin Brundle's comment after Norris passed him after the restart. That is just experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's learnt that lesson once, and he will not
for
have
sure.
to learn it twice or 3 times, and he'll figure it out.
Yep.
He understood, like,
For sure.
I think he was faster on that medium tyre and the soft tyre all weekend. Don't think he quite had the hard figured out. But, geez, he shows some competence. His racecraft is not as good as his qualifying.
Yep.
But he is building into be an absolutely sensational driver. And
Consistency, I think, is going to be his biggest strength. He is going to put in consistent lap times. The fluctuation between his good and bad is so small.
Yeah,
Compared to like
totally.
the bad of other people is diabolical. Like you look at
Totally.
Perez, like could not put it together. We'll talk about him later.
Yeah.
But like the worst out of Piastri is still really damn good.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I think, it's a testament to his Formula 3 career and Formula 2 career where he didn't win every single race, but he was within that podium step every time he went racing.
Yeah.
And the consistency is key in events like this. That is
I think
for sure.
I think one of the hardest things for these drivers to adapt to is just the tyres and learning the tyres and learning the compounds. And that must be difficult from going from F2, F3 cars where they are similar, but because the power's so different, they react differently.
The aero,
Yeah, but just to get the consistency in your driving to keep the tyres in that operating window that
All
they
the
should be in
time.
all the time. I mean, you look at the difference between him and the other rookies.
Yeah.
I mean,
Night and day.
and we've got guys like Perez and Stroll on the grid who currently shouldn't even. So there's 4 drivers that I would kick off the grid next year straight away.
We'll get to all of them.
Yeah.
But Oscar, really great job this weekend. Well done, my
Outstanding.
man. Let's talk about AlphaTauri and a team that no one is paying attention to. Nick De Vries, 18th. Yuki Tsunoda, 14th.
De Vries has got to go.
It is pretty obvious to me that Helmut Marko will be making 2 changes going into next year, and maybe Sergio Perez can go to AlphaTauri and Daniel Ricciardo can go to Red Bull. Maybe there's even a half. We're coming up to the break.
Ooh.
We're very close. Dr. Helmut Marko loves a bit of a mid-season change of
Bit
seats.
of headlines. Yeah.
Yeah, likes a bit of a
He's done.
change.
De Vries is done. He's a dud.
I don't know what he's shown that would get him another contract, get him another
Williams
year.
won race last year.
Yeah.
But that's getting further and further away and like looking less and less like the driver we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Yuki, right? I mean, yes,
Yuki's
going
had a-
well. The car's terrible. So for both of these guys, the car is terrible. That's unfortunate because they're not able to really show them their real pace. But the reality is, Tsunoda's not going to Red Bull Racing. He might go to Aston Martin when Honda become the manufacturer in 2026.
Yep.
If they get rid of Lance Stroll and put him alongside Fernando, if Fernando's still there, maybe he replaces Fernando. Who knows? But to me, this is a team that, unfortunately, as usual, with the Toro Rosso vibe and now here, you don't see them progressing anywhere anymore. And Albon really, for me, was the last driver that showed a huge amount of potential. Gasly, too, to a point, were probably taken too soon and the pressure was too high.
Gasly is fantastic. Campy,
Isn't he the
isn't
most fantastic Frenchman on the grid?
Exactly.
He's a
Yeah.
dud last night.
But I think I agree with you. Albon showed like incredible highs that were worth gambling on, whereas De Vries hasn't really shown that. Like, again, we had that one race where he stepped in and that was like, okay, that's worth a gamble for a season, half a season, 7 races. Have we seen enough?
Look, the Williams around Monza, slippery, look at what it did today. We will talk about Williams shortly, but it was genuinely great to see. So, look, he's not long for Formula One, which is unfortunate for him, but at least he finally had a shot because up until his Williams debut last year, he wasn't getting anywhere near Formula One anyway.
Yep.
Let's talk about Alfa Romeo. Oh, points for Valtteri Bottas. Point for Valtteri Bottas.
It'll do.
Bloody Lance Stroll got him literally over the line on the checkered flag. So he went from points to point. Joe Guan Yu
That'll feel like a win though, probably for Lance. Like,
I still remember Sergio Perez for bloody Racing Point Force India, whatever it was, at his home Grand Prix many years ago. Was it 2019?
Yeah.
Saying 7th or 8th felt like a win for him.
Mate, when your teammates 9 seconds off Max Verstappen and you just cross the
Scrape
line.
2 points.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Mate, seriously.
So I'm going to remove that. Thanks for that.
When I say
That's no better.
when you,
Going to remove that too.
when you
I'm just going to blank this list so you
Jesus,
can just
shut
fill it in with what you think Campy has incorrectly and inappropriately said.
Gosh.
Joe One, you had this real weird issue early days in qualifying, which just ruined his pace and this flow, I should say, to trying to get in there. Kind of unfortunate, but for Alfa Romeo, this season, it feels disjointed for us. It feels really disjointed for them because at least last year they were able to get some points fairly consistently. So I wonder if everyone else has just really started bringing their A game or if they are just going, do you know what, these regulations, who cares? We are now just solely focused on 2026.
I think it's a little option B. If I'm honest, I feel like their eyes are on the future. They go, what was the best we were going to achieve this year with these current regulations and our current setup? We weren't going to be competitive. We were going to be at the back. We weren't going to be getting points weekly. Why are we even bothering? Let's focus completely on the future where there is so much more opportunity to fight to be maybe the 5th best car. Because that's genuinely on the table. Like I think that's an open kind of area now to compete for 5th best constructor. Whereas right now, the best they were going to get is what, 8th, if everything goes well. Like I don't know if there's much more like upside. So I would do the same.
frustrating for him. Very frustrating.
And VB's not getting younger.
No,
VB
he's
can
not.
still
Same
drive.
age as DR.
VB can still drive.
Jeez, DR looks in better than Nick. Sorry, VB.
It's the snow and the ice and the saunas.
Don't rag on the guy. He had a rocking mullet 6 months ago. And
Still does.
Couldn't get enough of him.
Yeah, but that's only the Australian press because I needed something to do headline-y clickbait stuff with.
It's true.
All right, let's talk about Alpine. Could you please stop playing with your thing because you're absolutely making...
Shit in there. I'm trying to...
Well, don't because it
Sorry,
honestly,
mate.
it just you know what? I'm going to leave that in.
Campy needs a
Campy's playing
fidget
with his
spinner or
mic.
something.
Mic
Just
stand.
fucking
If
hell.
you own a fidget spinner and you want to send it in so Campy's got something to play with while we record, please mail it to...
And not the microphone or the lead.
Please mail it to I Can't Sit Still at 14th Street in Mornington. Alpine and its rear wing. Does it have a rear wing or does it have a wibbly wobbly situation?
It looked like someone cut an ice cream container in and like put it on. It was just wobbling so much.
That's very good.
Genuinely what it looked like, didn't it? Just
we
never
want-
noticed.
it.
Moving
Do
a
we
lot.
want to talk about flexi parts and what the tolerances are for
I don't
these
know.
things?
Yeah, but if you put a sandbag on the thing, it would just fall off.
Okay,
because
did
it
you not
would
hear
lean
that
to the
listenership
side.
has dropped? We don't need to talk about flexi wings for half an hour.
We're already
Jeez.
34 minutes into this.
Composite materials, Tommy. That's
I'm
technically
falling
what they're
asleep.
called.
Let's,
Boring.
Didn't look very stable, did
let's
it?
add some cable ties, team.
Yeah. Bit of gaff.
That's the only way to make it steady.
Still doesn't do it. Just put more on.
Interesting.
Till it works.
Interestingly, when it's under load, it looked fine, but when it was turning a corner, it just.
It's just, yeah.
I wish this was a video podcast.
This is not a visual medium, but I'm jiggling around.
We should
like,
get some bobblehead Tommy T's, mate.
bobblehead. Yeah, that's exactly what it was like.
Yes, that's a great idea. Gasly 12th, Ocon in 8th, Lando behind him complaining about the wobbly rear wing, which, try and say that quickly, which is why everyone kind of started paying attention to it. But Alpine had their sort of boop of success in Monaco, and now I think they will be in mediocrity for the rest of
I think
the season.
Gasly was pretty unlucky. He had a couple of moments.
Great driver.
Excellent driver. Very unlucky.
Children, please.
Nicest man on the grid, probably.
I think so.
There's 20 of them. Just ask
Who's
your
had the-
local capital
Who's had
city
the
of
better
choice.
year, Ocon or
I think you're right,
Gasly?
Ocon.
Ocon.
Yeah,
Ocon had a good race this weekend.
he did. He was solid.
Finished exactly where he needed to finish.
Yep.
Behind all the cars that are better than him.
Is this you?
some real insight here.
That is offensive. That is outstanding.
Hello at lakesidedrive.com.au. What is your
Journalism.
new insight into Formula One?
That's amazing. I'm excited because this is really hard for you. You have to pick one of the two Frenchmen to support.
Oh, Ocon all day.
Whoa.
just so nice to be incorrect, isn't it?
Ocon's had a
just
better
the
year.
ignorance in your life. The bubble is very small of where you exist, and Ocon is somehow squarely in the middle of it.
Oh, great.
I'm going to get you a SVN Ocon hat when I'm at Silverstone.
Oh,
Be the only
please.
one purchasing that hat, so maybe I'll wait till the end of the race so they'll be discounted.
I can imagine you at Paul Ricard. I think you would have a lot of You'd have fun.
Yeah, wear my beret too.
Can you imagine the beret getting subbed in for the beanie? No, on top of the beanie. Just on top.
With the horizontal
Do you remember how they
stripes.
used to have beanies with like a peak, like a cap peak? Campy's just going to have like a beret style on top of the beanie.
Oh,
Outstanding.
what an...
Market.
Can you stop? I got to make so many edits to this thing. It's ridiculous. Yes, I want to see him at Paul Ricard in a beret on top of his beanie. Listener, you can imagine that too. Join us in the hilarity that is. Yeah. All right. Well, look. Let's pay some bills. We're going to go to a sponsor break. We'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we're back from that. Thank you for listening. Let's continue on now with Williams. I'm so glad to talk about this after the sponsorship break. Tommy T, Alex Albon in 7th, and Logan Sargent in DNFing.
That's just like sums up the year for me.
Driver of the day.
He was awesome.
Sargent.
No, I think Albon is doing
Ugh.
way more with that car than I expected.
Yep.
I'm really impressed, and I would like to see him get opportunities further after this.
Is he doing George Russell things in that car?
It's hard to tell because that car has changed so many different times since George Russell's departure. It is completely different. There's new ownership. There's new kind of leadership. It's really hard to tell, but he's doing the things that George was doing, which was being opportunistic, getting points when they're available through alternate strategies, and just like really good driving, like aggressive, risk-taking driving for the best kind of opportunity, because otherwise you're not going to get points. Like, you need to take those risks.
So where does he fit into a top team if a seat comes available? What team's going to take the chance on Albon?
Look, I think he's probably destined for Ferrari.
Yeah. Well, that's what I would have said, yeah.
And I only say that because, I mean, obviously Red Bull is not a thing, not for them and not for him.
I don't think he'd go back.
No, I don't think he would either.
I think Mercedes probably have Lando Norris lined up for their other seat alongside George.
Yep.
And Ferrari, well, I mean, literally anybody. Giovinazzi, who won WEC, by the way.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes.
I found out recently that the team that won World Endurance Championship Le Mans 24-hour is a contractor to Ferrari, not actually Ferrari, which is why they won.
Because they're not
bought
actually
the licensing
Ferrari.
for it. They're not actually
Amazing.
Ferrari.
Can we put some stickers on our car? Thank you.
Yes, basically. Can we borrow this font? Yes, that's £5 billion, please. But anyway, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz will not stay in that team.
No,
Charles is absolutely against everyone in Ferrari at the moment.
It feels like.
He is overflowing. Like the pot is boiling and he's overflowing with rage now, and he's not able to keep it in.
I like
And
that. The pot is over.
And
Hello.
sooner rather than later, either the board are going to get fed up with him dissing Ferrari and yeet him, or he's going to yeet them. And I hope it's him yeeting them for a better scenario. And maybe that's Mercedes ahead of Lando Norris, but it certainly might also be Red Bull, because maybe Daniel Ricciardo can come in for a year,
Or Aston Martin.
or Aston Martin. But the reality is, neither of these drivers are also getting any younger. There is a crop now coming in. And if the opportunity is between Alex Albon and, say, Oscar Piastri, who did Ferrari take? Because there is a difference in age. There is a difference in experience.
Yep.
And let's say Charles goes to Mercedes, for example,
Mhm.
and when Lewis leaves, I know I said Lando, but let's just say for argument's sake that happens. And so the merry-go-round starts up. Perez goes to AlphaTauri, DR goes into Red Bull. So that's just a thing. De Vries goes, but Red Bull haven't lost or gained anyone. Well, they have lost De Vries, but whatever.
Yeah.
Bringing in Alex Albon, okay, is a good sign, but Oscar Piastri, a lot younger, bit of pedigree there, the championships won. it's a hard thing because I think there's pros to both of them.
Yeah.
I quite like Alex Albon. I would say Alex Albon is the nicest person on the grid. Ted,
I think so.
not Lando Norris.
Yep.
Yeah, I reckon he fits in at Ferrari. I think he's a perfect fit for them. He'd be a great number 2. I don't think he's a senior driver, but he could prove us wrong. Red Bull obviously saw a lot in him to promote him.
He still had a lot of great moments at Red Bull.
Well, he should have won 2 races.
Yeah,
Hamilton
thanks,
took him
Hamilton.
out twice.
Yep.
Yeah. You know,
I think he was kind of robbed of the opportunity to show that he could be a race winner in those kind of situations.
Yeah.
He got demoted pretty quickly.
he definitely didn't shit the bed like Gasly.
No, like, because his highs were excellent. He did have some like fumbles,
Yeah.
which is he's young.
Yeah.
He was very young. But then you look back to his junior career, he was right there with
Yeah.
all of the same Leclerc,
Yeah.
Russell, Lando. He was right in that group, just as competitive.
And they all respect him a hell of a lot.
Yep.
So he's a super talented driver. So
Yeah. Look, I think it's good news for Albon that he's
Yeah.
on the grid. I think it's good news for Williams that they're able to bring these upgrades and things are working.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't surprise me that maybe they've actually got a floor now because the last time I saw the underneath of the car, there was literally nothing. Now they probably saw
jet
Mercedes
ski.
and Red Bull at Monaco and went, oh, we'll just do that, I guess. And, now there's some good stuff happening. Let's talk about Ferrari, who were terrible in qualifying and actually made a strategy call that wasn't half bad, Tommy T.
Yeah.
Carlos Sainz 5th, Charles Leclerc in 4th.
But was it also the drivers then like poo-pooing the strategy that was suggested and going, no, actually listen? Again, like there's this constant feedback from the drivers where you're not seeing that from Mercedes or Red Bull or really Aston. The drivers are just accepting what the team's telling them. Ferrari is a constant conversation with the drivers kind of pushing back on all these strategy calls. It worked this time. So that's good for once because usually it doesn't. Usually it's the worst possible thing happens for them. I think given their position, they had to do something like this strategy-wise. So they kind of would have planned this out before the race had even started and just executed well.
Yeah. Well, it was bizarre when literally everyone else came into the pits and they didn't. Everyone was like, here we go again.
Yeah, uh-oh.
no, I didn't
dear.
mind it because they need to jump those cars on track.
And the likelihood of another yellow or another incident was like, it's pretty high in Canada.
Well, we finally saw some flags of various colours this weekend. We haven't for the last couple of races.
You'd prefer to have track position than not in Canada.
Yeah, agreed. Especially when you know everyone's going to try and get to the hard for a long stint.
Yeah.
Eventually anyway, if you can delay that, great.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, Ferrari, not all that bad, I should say. Mercedes, Russell found the wall.
What was your thoughts on that incident, Campy? That was him just taking way too much speed.
He's allowed to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Like, I think he missed the apex on the first part of that.
And like beached it on the sausage curb.
Yeah, well, he took too much curb on
Yeah.
on the first part of the chicane,
Yep.
which then sent him straight on. I actually thought when I first looked at the onboard, I was like, he didn't expect the back to step out as much as it did. The back oversteered and just went careering into the wall. Other than that, I thought he was just going to slide it on. Bit like what Max did on lap 56 or 66 or whatever it was. Similar instances. The difference is Max just backed right off.
Whereas George kind of
George tried to keep the momentum
Yeah.
and not lose as much time as he did, but he's allowed to make mistakes, and he doesn't make those mistakes all the time, and that's okay. Good for him. I mean, what a comeback drive. Got up to 8th. Probably was never going to get past Albon, and then eventually the crash made to retire, but solid drive from him.
Honestly, the fact that car could even compete still after that was ridiculous.
I think it looked worse than what it was.
Well, he had bent steering rack or whatever the equivalent is at the moment. It was like driving with a coat hanger or something.
I love the comment over there anyway. Oh, she's just a bit bent. She'll be fine. I love that.
Is this demolition derby? What's happening here? Like, this is a precision instrument that you're saying is just a bit bent.
Yeah, but good for Lewis Hamilton, third. There is progress clearly in this team now that they've grown some side pods to manage some pace, but it is still not enough to reel in the Red Bull. Reality is now Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton will be the two that really start to fight for this second position. It'll be interesting to see.
He's only 20 points behind him in the championship too. I think
he's been
101
right
to
there.
22 or something. So
Yeah, well, Verstappen is miles ahead, 195 points. Sergio Perez is 126 points. Fernando Alonso is 117 points, and Lewis Hamilton is 102. So
16.
Fernando, I think, will easily jump Sergio, and it will be a race to the end of the season for second because
Feels like this is going to be the trio on the podium for the rest of the year.
but
That you
how
could bank
good-
on, right?
yeah, and then they put bloody Adrian Newey up there, and
That's probably-
Natalie's like, oh, there's 11 world championships. There's a few more
than
because
He
Adrian
brings his own
double.
11.
It's 20. Yeah, exactly. It's like 22.
Yeah.
Have we seen a better podium in F1?
Whoa. Jeez. It's going to be hard. Max
This
is
is good podcast content as we all pause to think.
I don't think we've ever seen it.
that many. Whoa.
No,
Maybe
How
Fernando.
could you with Adrian Newey there?
I can't. It would only have been Seb, Michael Schumacher, and potentially
Alonso?
Lewis?
Seb didn't
Yeah,
get
maybe.
Seb didn't get podiums when Schumacher was like winning.
Yeah.
no, but
Schumacher
in
got
Mercedes
one.
era.
Yeah, but he only won one race.
Anyway, and
Yeah.
if Adrian Newey
Probably
wasn't
not.
on that podium, then no, because Adrian Newey makes up for the rest
Yeah.
of them.
Yes.
No, it was awesome. It's good to see.
Was good to see. But yeah, Hamilton, it's great to see. A lot of good driving. He got a fantastic start compared to Fernando. Was able to hold on for quite a while. It was interesting though, once Fernando got past, there is now more pace, I would argue, in that Aston Martin than what we saw in Spain.
Yep.
And they are bringing some upgrades in the same way that Mercedes
sure.
are. too.
I think the Mercedes is better on the softer compounds than the harder ones.
Yep. I would agree.
And the medium compound this weekend was the C4, so the second softest tyre we
Yep.
have. So,
Yep.
you
The
know,
4-5 seems to be good for them.
the 4-5's good for them.
Yep.
And it showed because Hamilton dropped that 5-second gap down to what?
Oh,
1.8, I think it was at the tyre.
Yep.
I think Fernando still had stuff in the tank and
Yep.
he's managing a small issue, but there is genuine pace in that Mercedes.
Yeah.
I did like, we can talk about it quickly now, in the little green room. I think that was really illuminating
was.
conversation, to be honest.
I missed it.
Them genuinely talking. So Max and Lewis were just genuinely sharing information like, how did you go on that first stint with these softs and this? And it was actually really interesting to see them just talk as, I guess, like peers. Like, is like the
Yeah.
best comparison. It was really good.
There's nothing to say that they aren't.
No.
It's just the media hype has,
sure.
you know, and it's Toto and Christian who have the fisticuffs.
Yep. And they're
Not
turning
these
up for a day of work and they're all there to
Right.
do their best job with the machinery they've got. But like they all really respect each other. Even
Max-
Lewis in his post race was like very complimentary of
Max
being
and
there
Lewis
with
is-
his-
Like they love to hate each other and they play
sure.
that up whenever they can.
They're
But
competitors.
there's some genuine respect
Oh.
between Hamilton and Alonso.
There's not many people that you can talk about being a world champion with. That
Being a
room
world
was kind of
Well,
yeah.
it goes back to when they were teammates in 09
yeah.
and some of the shifty stuff that they played on each other. I mean,
some great ads for their partner sponsors from that era. You know, when like Vodafone and everyone else and Hamilton and Alonso, I feel like was running into a hotel as faster than, you know, whatever. Was it Hamilton or maybe it was Jenson Button and Fernando? Anyway, just terrible early thousands advertising. Chef's kiss from me. Let's talk about Aston Martin. Lance Stroll doesn't deserve to be in the grid. Fernando Alonso second. Fantastic result for this team, considering the absolute domination that is going on with Red Bull Racing. This is the best that they can hope for week in, week out. And the fact that this is now one of more than 1 second for this team and noting his performance is a lot better than Sergio Perez, it is very likely that he'll end up in second this year.
I honestly think he's going to get a race win, though. I think there's something's going to happen.
coming.
There's going to be a mechanical failure. There's going to be a miss in qualifying with a red flag or something. He's going to end up on pole and Max will be 10th or something.
It'll be somewhere
There'll be
like
something
Vegas
like-
too. And
yeah,
so like
there'll
the
be
party atmosphere will be pumping and
I can see a win for Alonso coming.
Well,
it's
they've-
going to happen.
well, I mean, Red Bull have equaled their best ever run of 10 on the trot. So next race is the race for it to happen.
Yeah.
I can't see.
Statistics
I can't.
says-
Can't see it happen. I don't think they'll go through that. I'd love to see Max go through undefeated for the rest of the year, but
I mean, he has the record for most, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Just win it again.
yeah, I mean,
unfair because
It's
there's 1,000
pleasure.
races.
Yeah.
It is a pleasure, though, to watch Fernando Alonso on track.
Oh.
It is.
Having made a right decision in his career for once.
Quickly, can we
Set
talk
notes
about the
down.
unsafe release? Thoughts on that one, Campy?
No, it's fine.
He was fine. I've never.
I'll
This
tell
is
you
an
what,
absolute football/soccer move. There's Maradona. It's like sliding over and rolling around.
Oh.
He engaged
Alonso.
lumberjack mode and seesawed the living shit out of the steering wheel.
How good is Alonso? He saw that coming from like 100 metres up the road. He's like, I'm just going to milk this for all it's worth.
And then you
And
see
he's
Toto
just-
miming it later as well. Like, he's just moving the steering wheel.
Jeez, he's good. Jeez, he's
Outstanding.
good.
The fox, the wily old fox.
Seriously, the best thing to watch in a Grand Prix is
Yeah.
him. If we could able to press a red button on KO, just exclusively watch Fernando Alonso's onboard camera for the entire
Oh,
race.
jeez, he's
But
great.
then, just what a lap later or whatever, Lando Norris and Albon, that was a much worse
Yeah.
potential incident. than-
Especially because the
than
Ferrari
Lewis
pit crew nearly
Hamilton
got
won.
taken out by Lando. Yeah.
Oh, geez. It's just, yeah, but seesawing the steering wheel, a good, half a meter.
And then
a
on the
meter
radio,
back.
it's like, I had to pull out of that. I had to brake. I had to lift off.
And then his mechanic, we saw that incredibly dangerous. Guys are pulling out thesauruses going, what? It's like bad. Synonym for bad.
Just excellent. Love to see it.
All right, here's one for you.
Yeah, okay.
Do you reckon Aston Martin would be looking at Danny Rick as a co-driver pairing with Fernando next
They'd be
year?
stupid not to. I said this
Yeah.
3 months ago
Did you? Yeah, okay.
to whoever I was talking to on some radio that the story should be this year, not Daniel Ricciardo going back to Red Bull, because at that period, Sergio Perez was actually
Yeah.
doing pretty well.
Yep.
It was Lance Stroll being dropped to reserve drive or third drive for Aston Martin,
Yep.
and Danny Rick put alongside Fernando.
The only way is if Stroll leaves by himself, because I cannot imagine the connections, like the personal connections now
yeah.
with one of Danny's best mates married
Yep.
to Stroll's sister. Like, there is personal connection. They were both at the wedding. They're both hanging out in the bridal party.
Well, Danny
like,
Rick was Scotty James' best man, wasn't he?
I don't know. He was definitely the bridal party.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you then, like, one of your best mates' your brother-in-law, like,
Oh,
it's-
do it in a heartbeat.
But is that going to happen?
why not?
I can't imagine
Here's
it.
the thing, though. Does the board of Aston Martin allow this to continue? Because there is clear deficit in pace here.
Agree.
That it doesn't matter if he deserves to be on this grid or not. He can deserve to be on a grid in a Haas.
Yeah.
This is a team that should be fighting for second in the standings, and at the moment, it's just not happening.
Stroll
They're now
is-
behind Mercedes. Aston Martin 154, Mercedes 167, 154 mostly of Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, what's the contribution? if you've got it there?
118 to what?
Not a lot.
116 or something. whatever.
117 of those is Fernando Alonso.
Yes,
Wow.
That's massive.
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's
I feel like Daniel has as much points. And he hasn't
I'm
driven
well
this
aware
year.
the last
37
time.
points for Lance.
I'm well aware the last time I was on this podcast, I gave the case for Lance Stroll and why he stays.
Yeah. Were you
And-
okay that day?
Well, no, because it's true.
I was
Everything
going to say, I feel like we're warming up into this podcast now.
Yeah,
It feels
yeah.
like more usual.
Gonna go for
another
ridiculousness.
hour?
Yeah, well, only because he's going to say something incredibly incorrect again. Sorry, no, go on.
No, because what I said last time was about his dad backing him. And I get that 1,000%, and it's probably the case. But there comes a point
In every
where they
man's
seriously have no. But you get the birds and bees, so you figure it out by yourself. Oh, jeez.
He's lost his
Lost
point.
my train of
You
thought.
shaking
We'll,
it.
just
No,
go, we'll go to
they're
another ad
legitimate-
break.
they're-
Sky News will be back shortly.
Press the red button if you're a Sky Kicker.
Press the red button if you want to remove Andrew Bolt from the existence.
There just comes a point where
Red.
they've seriously got to look at it and go, you're not performing. And home track, Canada, teammate, all year, podium, to not even be close. Like, come on.
Yep.
We all know he shouldn't be there, but
I just know that Daddy Stroll has so much sway. Like, is literally the be all and end all. Will he do it? He has everything he's shown so far is he will always put his son first above business, which is odd.
I respect Daddy Stroll and what he's done, regardless of
Weird
whether
when
he
you
keeps
say
his
Daddy
son.
Stroll. Don't know if I like it.
Daddy.
Oh,
It's gross, isn't it?
Oh.
It's a shocking word. But I
I feel like I
respect
should
him.
censor that out too.
yeah. Can you just mark that one as well?
I respect him either way for what he's done in the sport so quickly.
Yeah,
I
agree.
understand why he backs his son, but I understand if he says, all right, it's time to move on, get out on your own and, you know.
We've
gross.
often had said
grow some
Your dad,
wings.
though, I think you should give up.
To senior, he's just.
It's great that you support your son, but why?
He needs to leave the nest.
Why in the
About
hell
time.
are you doing
Fuck,
that?
I'm not that bad. Jeez,
Let's
underperforming.
Let's round this one out.
You were at my wedding. You heard his speech.
No, I don't remember it.
Oh, bollocks. It's one of
I
the
was
greats.
driving. Did he speak? Red Bull, Max Verstappen first. We'll just leave that number one next to his name for the next little while.
Still
Sergio
think he's
Perez
tanking.
in sixth. Now, let's be real here. Obviously, Danny Rick coming back into the sport is fantastic, but let's put DR to the side for the moment. This is not performance of this. Sorry, this is not a performance from a driver driving the best car on the grid that is acceptable to any team, let alone Helmut Marko and Christian Horner.
Yeah.
What do you think?
What is it? 3 kind of races consecutively now where he has really underperformed in qualifying in the race.
Well, hasn't made Q3 for 3 races now.
Yeah, like we've left the street circuits, but Monaco doesn't count. We've left the street circuits and he has struggled. Like he had some, I would have thought that would have settled him, if anything. Those kind of good performances elsewhere early would have just settled him down. If anything, it's shaken his confidence more now. And he's like, Daniel's in his head. Max is in his head. He is struggling.
He was at a place after his second win of the year, wherever it was. He was 8 points behind Max Verstappen in the championship. I think it was Miami. He sucked and he won Miami, didn't he? Well, anyway, the next race sucked. And I was like, he's just left 25. I was like, the gap now back to him is 39 points, which was 5 races with the
pressure,
fastest
all
lap
the
that he has to
momentum.
beat Max Verstappen and bring it on.
Yep.
That gap is now to 75 or 70 points now.
Yeah.
That is 10 races out of the remainder that he has to beat Max Verstappen.
When he's about to be overtaken by people who haven't won a race
I can
yet.
assure you, it ain't going to happen.
True.
Like, the championship is over,
Yeah.
and if he doesn't pull through and at least be second in 50% of the races for the rest of the year, he's done. Because we know Max wants Danny Rick in that seat.
Well, here's my question.
I've got a quote from Max too in the meeting.
What is already happening at Red Bull Racing that is causing Sergio to have these issues? Because he is a great driver.
Yep.
He is the tyre whisperer. He feels like a win when he comes in 7th in his home Grand Prix in a Kingfisher branded car. But
What a time.
something is happening. What on earth is happening in the house of Red Bull? There is something happening there mentally that is not allowing him to be his best. And we saw it with Gasly.
Yep.
And we saw it with Albon. It's
Kvyat.
now happening. Well, Kvyat didn't care. All he wanted to do was crash into people. But what we're seeing is Max Verstappen chewing up another teammate.
Yep.
And there is an element probably when these guys go to bed at night knowing that they're not
In
as
bunk
good
beds?
as their teammate. Obviously.
I'm now
They all live
imagining bunk
together.
beds, yeah.
That's how they save money.
Yeah.
The cost cap, they all share a big bunk house in Monaco. What do you think, Campy? Oh, read us your quote first.
so-
You've done for one. This is the first time in 5
Very
years you've done
impressed.
some research on the podcast, and you brought yourself a quote. We'll read it out for the
Screenshotted
class.
something I saw
Yep.
on YouTube.
Now read it
This
out.
is Max speaking.
Can you talk into the microphone though when you talk?
This is Max speaking to Dutch media. Verstappen said, "Well, if I
You
had
an accent?
If I hadn't been there," he's talking about being at Red Bull, "it would have looked very different for them. I wouldn't be happy with not making Q3 3 times in a row, but I'm not concerned about it either. I'm busy enough on my side of the garage getting everything in order to pay attention to what's going on with Perez." Asked whether he was taking notice of Perez's issues, Verstappen replied, "The team must be. It's not my problem."
Amazing. He's just going, cool, don't want to know, fix it.
Yeah, it is the team of Max Verstappen, and if he wants Daniel Ricciardo in that car next to him for next year, it is happening.
He's the
and
golden
that is
goose,
just
though.
the reality
Like, they've
of it.
done everything right. Golden goose, what does he want?
Yeah.
Like, that's the best way to be.
And they need to keep him on side all the time.
Yeah.
All right. That's our team-by-team analysis done for this week. Let's now go to our Discord comment of the week.
And now it's time for the Discord comment of the week.
And this comes from LBS, as I said earlier on DR drinking maple syrup from the bottle on his little broadcast. LBS said, "He's guzzling maple syrup from the jar. I offer my passport in tribute."
Is this like his tribute to
LBS
like
being
Super
Canadian.
Troopers when they had to skull maples?
What a
Excellent.
movie.
What a
Oh,
great
God.
movie. Maybe, in fact, if the season continues like this, we're going to just create podcasts reviewing great movies that we all enjoy. We're going to start with Super Troopers.
Schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
Okay, and our fantasy team name competition. As I said, look, it is a very difficult season to get around. And for those of you who continue to be part of this and to change your name, thank you very much for doing that. We really, really appreciate it. I'm 16th at the moment. Campy, unfortunately, still equal third. You have gained places, though, Tommy T.
Hey.
57th.
Can't remember my login again.
I haven't checked it in 4 races.
All right, let's
I've
go
used
here.
all my
I feel
turbos.
like Campy
so-
hacked me because I didn't use my VPN. Changed my password on me. Dastardly.
Let me tell you who's in your team. Max Verstappen is
It's a good one.
two-timed. Very, very good.
Smart.
You've also got Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso. Good. Good. Logan Sargent.
Bad.
Worse than bad. Minus 19 points this week. This is why, because he keeps failing
He's
to do
plummeting
stuff
me.
and he keeps getting... And then Alex Albon
Oh,
and then
geez,
Red
I've
Bull and
done-
Aston Martin. Why have you got two Williams drivers in? And why have you put Charles Leclerc in there and not at least Hamilton or someone of equal value? Who's not... You
I
don't
ran
have
out of
a
money.
login. No, you don't have... And also, Mercedes are terrible when you set this up. Minus 19 points. You got 246 points
Just
this
a
weekend.
couple of tweaks and I reckon I'm all good.
Love
That's
that.
a good
You
little
are-
team with both those
You are
constructors.
good. I
Get rid of Ferrari.
I did the weird limitless thing this weekend, and I can't click my own team, so I
Full
don't.
Bradley
I couldn't tell
Cooper.
you. Campy still has exactly the same team as he's had.
I'm not
Max
changing it.
Verstappen,
I'm
Fernando
sticking with
Alonso,
it.
Lance Stroll. He should be in the bin. Sergio Perez. He should be in the bin. Yuki Tsunoda, Red Bull Racing, and Aston Martin.
Well, Perez is helping you because he qualifies poorly, but then he goes through in the race and has
Well,
overtakes.
I had for this weekend,
I'm not-
in an aim to try and get myself back into the running, Max Verstappen, two-timed, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell,
Hey.
Sergio Perez,
Ah.
Red Bull, and Mercedes.
Oh,
Because
George.
there is this chip called Limitless, and it does it. You can put whoever you want in. There's no cost cap. And George absolutely munted me.
Maybe I haven't used my...
No, you haven't. Annoyingly, out of all of that, and this is the thing I thought, and there were a couple of people who did exactly the same thing as I did for the Canadian Grand Prix. Sanigov, number 3, 328 points.
That's massive.
Max Verstappen, 3-timed. Sergio Perez, 2-timed. Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Joe Guan Yu, Red Bull Racing, Aston Martin. So that is just a normal team, and all he's done is apply Max Verstappen 3-time extra DRS chip. So well done
I don't even know
to
what that
you.
is.
So when you time something by 3,
It's 3
I'll get
times
the
original
principle,
value.
jeez.
Some team names that I picked out. I cannot believe we're here. F1A, Too Many Carlos Pints. Poutine on pole. The B Sharps, nice Simpsons reference.
Good,
Some
good.
rogue Australian fan, and Beware the Spanish Inquisition, which I assume was an update from the Spanish Grand Prix that I didn't see last week. But look,
Excellent.
that is now it. Listener, thank you so much for listening to us warm up into this podcast.
We got there in the end, didn't we?
This will be the last time you hear the three of us in the room for quite some time. By the time I'm back, it will be the mid-season break, so we will do an in-person mid-season review if anything's really happened until that point. But we will be continuing to produce some remote podcasts with Freya as well. Tommy T, massive thank you to you.
thank you.
Thomas Shankham, massive thank you to you.
Oh, man.
A massive thank you to you as well if you are one of our patrons on Patreon. It does help keep the lights on. We so appreciate everything that you guys do for us here at this podcast. And if you're at the British Grand Prix on Friday, I will be as well. I'm not going to bother going the rest of the days because it'll be absolute madness, but I will be there on
Do not
Friday.
envy that traffic.
But that's it for this
Love
podcast.
that.
See you very soon for another episode of Lakeside Drive.
You would love a McRib, I bet.
Oh,
What?
yeah, that's
McRib.
They have McRibs here.
There's
one
a
of the more
tinge of
famous.
excitement in his voice.
McRib.
McRib?
Shit.
How do I get some of that?
I love fast food ribs and brisket.
It's not America. It's not Texas.
It's not even close.